Anthropic just dropped Claude Opus 4.7, 20% better at coding, self-verifying outputs, triple the image resolution, but the developer community isn't celebrating. They're accusing Anthropic of sandbagging the old model to make the new one look good. Here's what Anthropic is claiming. SWE-bench Pro, the hardest coding benchmark, jumped from 53.4 to 64.3%, graduate-level reasoning hits 94.2%, and visual accuracy went from 54.5 to 98.5%. These aren't incremental gains, this is a generational leap. Over the past 3 weeks, developers on Claude AI started noticing something. Opus 4.6, the model they'd been using daily, was getting worse. Tasks that used to work started failing. Code that used to compile started breaking, and then, right on schedule, Anthropic drops the upgrade. As one developer put it on Reddit, Opus 4.7 feels like what 4.6 was 3 weeks ago before they nerfed it. Classic phone company strategy: throttle the old battery, then sell you the new phone. The biggest change you'll feel immediately is adaptive thinking. Anthropic killed the manual extended thinking toggle. Gone. You used to set a thinking budget in tokens, now the model decides how much to think on its own. If your code uses the old thinking parameter with type enabled and budget tokens, it now throws an error. You have to migrate to thinking type adaptive, and instead of a token budget, you set effort levels: low, medium, high, or the brand new xhigh level. Xhigh sits between high and max effort. Anthropic raised the Claude code default to xhigh for all plans. More reasoning depth than high, but without the runaway token costs of max. Think of it as the actually try mode. Opus 4.7 ships with a brand new Tokenizer. Same text, same prompt, but it now maps to up to 1.35 times more tokens. Anthropic says the pricing is unchanged at $5 per million input, $25 per million output. But if the same work costs 35% more tokens, you do the math. Opus 4.7 now accepts images up to 2,576 pixels on the long edge, roughly 3.75 megapixels. That's 3 times higher than any previous Claude model. Great for reading dense screenshots and complex diagrams. But higher-res images also eat more tokens automatically. They're launching 3 cost management tools alongside Opus 4.7. First, effort parameters so you can tune reasoning depth. Second, task budgets in public beta. Set a token ceiling per task so Claude can't blow through your quota. Third, prompt caching. Reuse repeated context to cut costs. Self-verification. Opus 4.7 now devises its own checks before reporting a task as complete. Instead of just generating code and saying done, it runs mental tests, validates edge cases, and verifies the output makes sense. Less human babysitting, more reliable agents. 84% of developers use AI coding tools daily, but only 29% trust AI-generated code in production without manual review. That gap between adoption and trust is exactly what self-verification is designed to close. New in Claude Code, the /ultra review command, a dedicated review session that reads your changes and flags bugs like a careful reviewer would. 3 free ultra reviews for Pro and Max users. Also new, auto mode for Max users. Claude makes decisions on your behalf for longer tasks. From the official blog, prompts written for earlier models can sometimes now produce unexpected results. Where previous models interpreted instructions loosely, Opus 4.7 takes the instructions literally. In other words, it actually follows your instructions now, and that's going to break a lot of prompts. If you've been writing sloppy prompts and relying on the model to figure out what you mean, that era is over. Opus 4.7 is like hiring a developer who follows the spec exactly. Great if your spec is good, disastrous if it's not. Opus 4.7 uses tools less frequently than 4.6. It prefers to think deeper and reason through problems instead of making tool calls. More internal reasoning, fewer API round trips. Higher accuracy on benchmarks, but if your workflow depends on heavy tool use, bump the effort to high or xhigh. Dario Amodei, CEO of Anthropic, announced Project Glasswing just 9 days ago. The premise: they built a model too powerful to release. Not Opus 4.7, something else entirely. Claude Mythos, internal codename Capybara. During testing, Mythos autonomously discovered thousands of zero-day vulnerabilities across major operating systems and browsers. It didn't just find bugs, it developed working exploits with minimal human guidance. Mythos preview is locked behind Project Glasswing, available only to a vetted consortium. Oz, Apple, Google, Microsoft, NVIDIA. They use it for defensive cybersecurity, finding and patching vulnerabilities before attackers can exploit them. Strictly monitored, no self-serve API, no consumer access. Anthropic explicitly says they used Opus 4.7 as a testing ground for Mythos safeguards. During training, they experimented with differentially reducing cybersecurity capabilities. Opus 4.7 ships with automatic detection that blocks prohibited cyber requests. What they learn here determines when or if Mythos goes public. So where does Opus 4.7 sit against the competition? OpenAI's GPT 5.4 dropped last month, strong on general reasoning and ecosystem integration. Google's Gemini 3.1 Pro leads in multimodal, but on pure coding and agentic workflows, Opus 4.7 currently holds the crown. Should you upgrade? Let's grade it. Coding capability A+, vision A, instruction following A, cost transparency C, the tokenizer inflation is real, migration effort B, API changes require code updates and user control C-, losing the manual thinking toggle hurts power users. March 31st, Claude code source leaks via an NPM source map. The leak reveals references to both Opus 4.7 and a future Sonnet 4.8. April 7th, Anthropic unveils Project Glasswing and Mythos preview. April 16th, today Opus 4.7 goes live globally. Did Anthropic intentionally degrade Opus 4.6? Probably not in the way Reddit thinks. Model performance can drift with infrastructure changes, load balancing, and routing updates, but the perception matters. When your users don't trust the upgrade because they think you sabotaged the old version, that's a brand problem. Their internal alignment assessment describes Opus 4.7 as, and I'm quoting directly, largely well-aligned and trustworthy, though not fully ideal in its behavior. Largely, not fully. For an AI safety company, that's an unusually honest self-assessment. Think about that. The model too dangerous to release is better aligned than the model they just released. Mythos outperforms on safety benchmarks. It's more honest, more resistant to prompt injection, more cooperative. The restriction isn't about alignment, it's purely about offensive capability. Opus 4.7 is genuinely better at what matters, coding, reasoning, and seeing. But the hidden costs are real. Token inflation is a stealth price hike, the API migration is mandatory, and somewhere behind closed doors a model called Mythos can find 0 days while you sleep. The question isn't whether Opus 4.7 is good, it's whether Anthropic is playing fair. That's the signal on Claude Opus 4.7, genuine upgrade, hidden costs, and a shadow model called Mythos that changes everything. Subscribe to stay ahead. Overwrite, tech moves fast. We